Longing for the beach billionaire daddy. Chapter 21 to 30. Shelby. I woke in the enormous master suite to the soft glow of morning coming through the windows. What should have been a peaceful morning was punctured by screams of irritation from the floor below. I wrapped the robe Michael had given me around myself and opened the door to my room. I hurried down the stairs to see what was going on. You have got to be kidding me. This is completely unacceptable. A woman with blonde hair matching Lauren's was yelling at Max, the staff member I'd played cards with on the yacht. Ma'am, I don't know what to tell you. Mr. Astor has already assigned the rooms. I cannot go against his direct orders. There is already another guest staying in that room, and I am sure Mr. Astor would not approve of me kicking them out of the room. Max was clearly exasperated from dealing with the woman, and I couldn't blame him. We will see about that. You will be lucky if you still have a job by the time I'm through with you. The woman quickly turned, and unfortunately, she spotted me on the stairs. Her face was devoid of emotion, probably from the excessive and very obvious Botox treatments. Come to enjoy the show, did we? She asked, but I couldn't tell if she was trying to glare at me or not. I turned around, deciding it was best not to get involved. I could already guess that the woman screaming had been Lauren's mother, Marmee, and if I were to bet my life on anything, it would be that she was angry she was not assigned to the room Michael had picked out for me. I couldn't help the feeling of warmth that spread through me at the thought of Michael giving me that room over her. A few hours later, I dared to leave my room again but was met with more yelling coming from the lower floor. I would have gone back up to my room, but my empty stomach protested that idea. I hoped I would be able to make it to the kitchen without anyone seeing me, but luck wasn't on my side. So you are the one that took my room. I immediately knew it was Marmee. I turned to find not only Marmee standing behind me but Lauren, Todd, and Megan too. Megan had a small smirk on her mouth that she tried and failed to hide. What are you talking about? I asked, pretending I had no idea what she meant. I just found out that one of the master bedrooms went to you. I am stuck on the bottom floor in one of the guest rooms like some commoner. I don't see the problem. I was told which room had been assigned to me. I didn't ask for it. Oh, you must be the poor one. It makes sense why you can't understand something so simple, Marmee said with a pointed look at my simple clothes. I knew I should have put on one of the outfits Michael had bought for me. I was just so scared to ruin them that I didn't want to wear them for anything other than a nice occasion. Megan flat out laughed at Marmee's comment. I looked over and saw Lauren playfully slap her arm to get her to stop laughing, but she had a smile on her face too. I couldn't bring myself to look at Todd's face, but I figured he was getting a laugh out of this interaction as well. Do you know who I am? Marmee asked. I internally cringed. I'd always hated customers who tried the "do you know who I am" card at the bar. It was usually coming from someone who looked an awful lot like Marmee. I'm guessing that you are Lauren's mother, I said as calmly as I could. Exactly. So you need to pack up your things and get out of my room. I'm not moving my stuff. I was assigned that room, and I'm going to stay in it. How many times do I have to tell you, Marmee? This is not your house, and you don't get to order my guests or my staff around. Marmee's face paled slightly, but she turned with a tight-lipped smile at Michael, who'd walked into the room without her noticing. Relief flooded my entire body. Knowing Michael was there, I felt like less of the underdog. He had an angry burning in his eyes that I had never seen there before. It seemed to make Marmee nervous, too, because she started stammering an explanation. This whole thing was just a misunderstanding. I just figured, with our history, I would have one of the bigger rooms. I just remembered, though, that I love the view of the ocean from the room I'm in. That is probably why you picked it for me. Michael didn't say anything in response. When Marmee couldn't take the awkward silence any longer, she tried her best to make an escape. Well, I better go freshen up. She quickly walked away, her steps clicking as her heels made contact with the marble tile floor. Now I understood what the crew was talking about, how Marmee would chase everyone who was close to Michael away. She acted as though she had a right to everything Michael owned, just because she was Lauren's mother. If I were to guess, I bet Marmee had chased away more than just potential girlfriends, but Michael's friends too. Lauren and Todd followed Marmee out of the kitchen, and I felt heat on my lower back. Michael had placed his hand there and leaned close to me. "Are you okay?" he asked quietly. I looked up and noticed Megan had lingered in the kitchen and was watching Michael and me closely. I nodded and stepped away from him, grabbing an apple out of the fruit bowl on the counter. I spent the rest of the morning carefully avoiding Marmee, but it seemed like everywhere I went, Todd would show up a few minutes later. He was always talking very loudly about what needed to be done before the engagement party. Not wanting to talk to him, I gave up and went back to my room. I went out to the balcony and leaned over the railing to watch the ocean. A few men were surfing, and even from the distance, I could make out Michael sitting on his surfboard bobbing in the water. Baby cakes. I looked over to see Todd leaning over the railing of the adjacent balcony, straining to see me on mine. I shook my head at him. I hated that nickname when we were dating but didn't have the heart to tell him, and now after everything, I loathed it. "Please, I just need to talk to you." "You have nothing to say that I would be interested in hearing," I said and went back into my room, shutting the door behind me a little more forcefully than I intended. My heart was pounding, and I knew I needed to get control of my anger, but I couldn't do that knowing Todd was in the next room over. So I grabbed my book and a beach towel out of the bathroom before heading down to the beach. I walked through the living area of the mansion and nearly ran into two giant ice sculptures as they were being brought through to the kitchen. "Oh, careful Shelby," Lauren said, rushing over to inspect the ice sculpture. I quickly stepped back to avoid a life-size rendition of Shelby and Todd embracing. "Oh wow," was the only thing I could say, looking at the ice sculpture. "I know, right? It is absolutely perfect," Lauren beamed. "It sure is something. Mom commissioned it as soon as she found out about the engagement party." "Well, I want the best for my little girl." Marmee's voice flowed down the stairs as she made her way toward us with Todd on her arm. "I'm just so glad, my darling girl, found the perfect man. He looks just as handsome in ice as he does in person." Marmee squeezed Todd's arm as they reached the bottom of the stairs. "It really is the perfect embodiment of us both," Todd said with a smile in my direction. "It matches your heart, Todd." "Ice cold," I muttered under my breath. I made a hasty exit out the back door and nearly ran towards the beach, needing to get away from both versions of Todd. I spread my towel out in the sand and lounged on the ground, hoping to continue the book I had been trying to read the day before, but Lauren's demanding voice carried all the way down to the private beach. I needed a better distraction. I threw my head back and looked up at the bright blue sky. I didn't think I could make it through this engagement party. My phone vibrated with a text message from Aubrey, containing flight information for a flight leaving the next day. It would cost the rest of my savings, but maybe it would be for the best if I left. "Every time I've seen you lately, you've had that book with you, but you never seem to be reading it." I sat up to find Michael standing in front of me, shirtless, soaking wet, and holding a surfboard. Beads of water were sliding down his naked torso, and I couldn't help but watch them caress his skin, slowly sneaking lower. I looked back up at Michael's teasing smile. "Do you need a towel? You're dripping on me," I said with a playful smile. I was enjoying the flirtatious banter. "Would you share yours? Unless you'd like to join me for one more wave." "I have never been surfing," I admitted. "I would be happy to teach you, as long as you don't send us both flying into the water again," Michael said with a wink and a charming smile. "I can't make any promises about that," I said with a laugh. "Then it might be best for you to stay on dry land. The engagement party is supposed to start in a few hours." I sighed quietly and looked down at my toes. I'd buried them under the sand. I pulled them out and brushed off the sand. "Well then, I'm going to head back up to shower and get ready." Michael offered me his hand and helped me off the ground. "I will see you there." I handed Michael the towel I had been sitting on. "In the shower?" Michael asked with a raised eyebrow. "I'll see you at the party, Michael," I said with a seductive glance over my shoulder as I walked back toward the mansion, leaving him behind me. I could feel his eyes on me as I walked away. Chapter 22. The soft fabric of my chiffon cocktail dress swished against my thighs as I made my way downstairs. I picked this particular dress because the stormy gray color complemented my red hair nicely. The music was already thumping through the house from the back patio, making the windows rattle slightly. The infinity pool was illuminated, giving the entire party a slight glow. The first place I headed was to the bartender. I knew it was going to take a lot to get through this night, and I needed all the help I could get. Would you like a Lauren lemon drop or a Todd tequila shot? Are the only two things on the menu? I asked. I shouldn't be surprised that they had signature drinks named after themselves. The bartender gave me a sympathetic smile. Or we have the Marry Me margarita. This was going to be a very long night. A margarita then. I walked away with my margarita in hand and joined a small group of people surrounding the life-size ice sculpture of Lauren and Todd. A woman with dark hair flowing all the way down her back turned to me and asked, "So how do you know the couple?" "Oh, I went to school with Lauren at NYU. I figured it was best to leave out how I knew Todd. I didn't realize that Lauren went to college. She never mentioned it at our photo shoot in Greece last year. That's how we met," she said with an air of superiority. "What did you study at NYU?" a blonde man said, entering the conversation. "Oh, I got my bachelor's in history and I just graduated with my master's in political science. I'm going to Harvard for law school in the fall." "That sounds absolutely terrible. I went for the first week of college and dropped out. They wanted me to show up for classes before, like 10 in the morning, the dark-haired woman said. "Yeah, some of the classes can be pretty early," I said, not knowing how to respond. "So, are your parents making you go to law school or something? Does your dad own a law firm?" "I have a friend whose dad is making him become a lawyer so he can take over the law firm someday," the blonde-haired man asked me. "No, I'm not being forced. I just have always wanted to be a lawyer. No one in my family owns a law firm, although I wish they did. That would make finding a job after I graduate a lot easier," I answered with a nervous laugh. The two gave me a strange look as though they had never met someone who willingly went to college to pursue a career simply because it was what they wanted. "So you're, like, smart," the woman said in a patronizing tone. They turned to each other and actually laughed at me while I was still standing next to them. "Don't tell me you are putting yourself through school too. Let me guess, you are a waitress or something," the man said with a mean smile. "I'm a bartender," I said quietly. This answer sent them both over the edge with giggles. They moved forward, effectively cutting me out of the group with their bodies. I realized that I had nothing in common with these people and turned to leave. Tears stung the corners of my eyes, and I needed to get away from the thumping beat of the DJ's speakers. I would not cry in front of these people. I refused to give them the satisfaction. I walked down the runway to the gazebo that jutted out into the ocean, so the waves crashed against all sides, drowning out the music and laughter from the party. I braced myself on the backrest of an iron bench, wiping away an escaping tear from my face. I knew I didn't belong here, and I couldn't stand staying another day. I pulled my phone out of the clutch I was carrying and sent a quick text to Aubrey and Lynn. "Shelby, I just got laughed at for wanting to become a lawyer. I need to get away from these people. Aubrey, do you want me to book you that flight?" "Shelby, yes, I'm ready to come home." "Aubrey, bad news. The flight tomorrow is booked." "Shelby, when is the next flight out of here?" "Aubrey, in 2 days." "Shelby, book it. I will just find a way to hide out for one more day." "Lynn, you can get through this. I will be waiting at the airport to pick you up." "Shelby, I can't thank you two enough. What would I do without you? I miss you both, and I can't wait to see you." "Aubrey, your flight has been changed. We will see you in 2 days. Hang in there. We love you, Shelb." "Lynn, what Aubrey said. Just 2 more days. Shelby, love you girls too." A hand gripped the top of mine on the bench and gave it a small squeeze. "I have been trying to talk to you all day. Why have you been avoiding me?" I looked down and was disappointed that it was not Michael's tanned hand on top of mine. I ripped my hand out from under Todd's and gave him an icy glare. "What do you need?" "I need to talk to you in private." "This is private enough," I said, looking back at the party. I knew someone would hear me if I screamed loud enough. "Just come back to my room with me." Todd leaned in close and whispered, "I miss you." "You can talk to me here or not at all," I said and took a large step back and away from him. You look amazing, baby cakes. I have never seen you wear a dress like that. It looks good on you and would look even better off, he said with a sleazy smile. Do not call me that. Don't think about me like that. Does your fiancé know where you are? I hissed. Of course, she doesn't, and she doesn't have to. Does she know anything, Todd? Does she know about our past? Does she know that you dated me for years and how you were still dating me when you two met? My breaths were coming in ragged gasps now. I had never been so angry at Todd before. I could not stand the fact that he had not only thrown me over for someone else after I had wasted years of my life on him, but now he had the nerve to try and win me back at his engagement party. Of course, she knows, he said quickly while looking away. You are such a liar. My voice echoed against the pillars of the gazebo. Angry tears burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Are you sure I'm the liar and not Lauren? What if she just invited you here to make you watch her get engaged to your ex? It sounds like just the kind of game that she and her rich friends would find so entertaining. They have been laughing at you behind your back this entire trip. You've always been the liar, Todd. I wish I had seen that from the very beginning. You obviously don't know Lauren. There is no way she would be that cruel. I never mentioned you by name to her when we were dating because she never seemed to care about my personal life. And if they've been laughing at me this entire time, why didn't you tell me sooner? You're just lying to save yourself. I hope the words I said were true. It had been a long time since I'd spent this much time with Lauren, and she'd changed a lot. However, I couldn't believe that she would purposely torture me. We have the chance to get back at her for humiliating you, Todd said quietly. What are you talking about? I asked, confused at the sudden shift in the conversation. Take me back. She never has to know that we made up. Everything could go back to the way it was. Back to the way it was. Really, Todd, how exactly do you think that would ever work? I'm just supposed to be okay with the fact that you are marrying Lauren. Do you really think Lauren would be okay with her husband having a girlfriend on the side? I asked, shocked at what he was asking of me. I would still marry Lauren, and we would have more money than we would even know what to do with. As soon as my dad makes me a partner, I will have to go on business trips all the time, and you could come with me. Lauren will never know that we are back together. You're ridiculous, Todd. It is all just about the money, isn't it? You want everything that you can't have, and you are only marrying Lauren for her money. Well, she is not bad to look at either, Todd said as though I was the one being ridiculous. I cannot believe I ever loved you. You are a horrible person. Just leave me alone, Todd. I turned away from him and crossed my arms. I was exhausted from our conversation and realized that there was no way to make him see how horrible he was being. Take me back, Shelby, please, Todd said, and he reached out and grabbed my arm. Do not touch me, I said as I pulled away from him. Someone cleared their throat at the entrance of the gazebo. Todd dropped his arm, that he had reached out to me, and he took a step back. Todd, Lauren is looking for you. I think it would be best if you went and found her. Todd didn't answer and made for the exit quickly. I watched as he stopped in front of Michael, waiting for him to move so that he could leave. Michael remained where he was standing, so Todd had to awkwardly shimmy past him. If I weren't so furious and trying to hold back the tears still hot in my eyes, I would have laughed. I let out a frustrated sigh that turned into a small sob. Michael was at my side in seconds. Are you okay? Michael asked as he put a hand on each of my arms, rubbing them comfortingly. I'm fine, I lied, trying to hide the few tears that had fallen down my face. Shelby, you're shaking. You are not okay. Please come with me. Michael held out his hand, and I took it. I don't want to go back to the party. We don't have to go back to the party, Michael said. Then where are we going? I asked, my voice cracking. To my room. Chapter 23. Michael held my hand as he led me through a side door of the mansion, avoiding the large crowd of the engagement party. When the door closed behind us, the music and noise of the group were muffled. All that we could hear was the low rumble of the bass as it vibrated through the walls. Michael and I walked in silence, and he never let go of my hand as he led me back to his room. Michael's room was decorated in soft grays and silvers. The massive bed stood alone in the center of the room with a crystal chandelier hanging over the center. My feet were sore, so I slipped my heels off and set them by the double door entrance of the room. Michael clicked the lock on the door, walked across the room, and sat down in an armchair on the other side of the room. I followed, my bare feet cold on the tile floors. The room's soft coldness made me feel like I was surrounded by a cloud, comfortable and warm but still in a storm. I nearly sank into the plush armchair that matched Michael's. I would have loved to be enveloped by the chair and not have the conversation I knew was coming. Unfortunately, the truth would likely bring on a storm of its own. I need to know the truth, Shelby. I know you do, I said. I let the silence fall between us, not knowing how to start. So I waited for Michael to ask a question first. You've known Todd for longer than just this week, haven't you? I met him at NYU in one of my general classes, I admitted. So you have known him for years? Almost 4 years, I said barely above a whisper. We dated for 3. I heard Michael take a deep breath at my confession. Why didn't you tell me or Lauren? Honestly, I didn't know what to do. When I got here, I had no idea that Todd would be on board too. Lauren introduced me to him as her new boyfriend, and he acted as though we had never met before. The situation was so uncomfortable. I was still in shock and so hurt. Deep down, I knew I should have spoken up on that very first day instead of letting the lie go this long. So you just decided to say nothing instead? His eyebrows cinched together. All I could manage was a nod as the tears blurred the edges of my vision. You said you were hurt seeing him again. How long ago was this breakup, Shelby? He officially broke up with me the day before I walked to receive my master's degree. We had been fighting for weeks before that, though, when I found out he had been cheating on me for months. Shit. With my daughter? Yes. They met at my birthday party. Did she know? I honestly don't think she knew. Or at least if she did, she didn't know I was the girlfriend. I am so sorry, Shelby. How did you expect to spend an entire vacation keeping this all a secret? By the time I came to my senses, the yacht had already departed. I figured I would avoid Todd, and at the end of this vacation, I would go back to my normal life, I said. I continued, I would never see him again after I moved, and I honestly didn't think that Lauren and Todd would last. Lauren never dates anyone for longer than a few months. I never imagined that Lauren would get engaged to him. Why has he been following you around? Michael said sternly. I don't know why he can't just let our relationship go. I said. I heard Michael sigh, and when he spoke again, his tone was softer. What did he have to say to you tonight on the gazebo? You looked like he had you cornered. He was lying to me. I attempted to avoid his question, not wanting to go into the awful details of my conversation with Todd. About what? Michael asked. He was clearly going to keep pressing until I told him everything. He told me Lauren knew that she invited me on purpose as some kind of joke for her and all her rich friends. I know my daughter can be thoughtless at times, but I don't believe she would purposely be so cruel, he said, rubbing his hands on his face. I don't believe him, I assured Michael, seeing the worried look on his face. Why would he outright lie like that? It took me a few minutes to respond, trying to find the best way to word my answer. I sighed and looked down at my feet. He was trying to convince me to sleep with him again, to get back at Lauren. My cheeks flushed at this admission of what Todd had said to me. Anger heated Michael's gaze as his eyes bore into mine. Do you want him again? What are you talking about? No, of course, not. I don't want him in any way ever again. He completely betrayed me, I said, completely shocked by his question. I figured his anger would be towards Todd, not me. Michael's eyes remained dark, and he didn't respond. Instead, he got up from his chair and started pacing the room. Aren't you worried that this is the man that your daughter has picked to marry? I asked, exasperated that he was questioning me about wanting to sleep with my ex as if I was so weak that I couldn't possibly say no to a man who had utterly betrayed my trust. If I go and tell Lauren what is going on and try to convince her to end the engagement, then he would be free to come back to you. Is that what you want? Michael asked through clenched teeth. Michael's words stung. Why are you twisting everything I say? How can I trust anything you say after you've lied to everyone this entire time? The tears truly started falling then. I quickly stood from my chair and made my way to the door. Before I even reached my shoes next to the door, Michael grabbed my wrist, making me pause. Stop. I'm sorry. I didn't mean that, he said softly as he ran his thumb in circles on my wrist. Normally, that would have made my heart flutter, but at that moment, the only thing I wanted was to be alone on a flight headed for home. I don't need this from you. I used the back of my free hand to wipe the tears streaming down my cheeks. I just hate imagining you with him, he said quietly. We let the unsaid meaning of his words float between us. Neither of us acknowledged the implications of his words. I just have to know. Do you love him? Will you believe what I tell you? I asked, finally turning around to look at him again. He let my wrist fall from his fingers. Yes, I promise, he said with a note of fear in his eyes. Was he truly afraid that I was still in love with a man who treated me so poorly? He reached up to my face and wiped away another stray tear. No, I do not love him, I said pointedly, my voice steady. Did you love him? Michael asked softly. I was with him for 3 years, Michael, I said with a sigh, exhausted at his line of questioning. That's not what I asked. Did you love him? He asked again, with more force. I did love him, but after everything that's happened, how could I still love him? I was wrong about so many things in our relationship. What if you change your mind? Michael resumed pacing the room. I won't. I don't take betrayal lightly, I said firmly. I just wish you would have said something from the very beginning. It was my turn to feel anger. Anger because he was not understanding that everything between Todd and I was completely over. I didn't want anything to do with Todd because the only person I wanted was him. I only wanted Michael. You don't get it though, do you? I said, marching up to him, blocking him from pacing. What am I not getting? Tell me why you lied to me for so long. I would have understood. Would you really have understood? Don't you get it? If I had told the truth from the very beginning, I would have been on the first flight home. I would have left as soon as we made the first port, raising my voice to a level that made me flinch as it echoed back to me off of the walls. Michael stared at me, clearly still not understanding. I took another step closer to him, so that we were almost touching. I took a breath to calm myself down before continuing. If I had told the truth, I would have never gotten to know you. Michael looked at me intensely then. He knew I was right. I wanted to tell you first thing, but I was just scared. I don't fit in here, remember? The last thing I needed was to make Lauren mad. And who even knows if Todd would have owned up to it? He could have pretended I was lying to cover for himself, I said, starting to turn away from him again. He gently grabbed my arm, making me face him. He looked down at my hand and then interlaced his fingers with mine. So, you're glad we've gotten to know each other then? He said with a sly smile. I couldn't help but smile back. Of course, I am. Isn't it obvious? I do spend most of my time here with you. He nodded. That's true. He let our hands fall apart, but the tips of our fingers still touched. Todd wanted you to have sex with him to make Lauren mad. He seems to be pretty hung up on you, especially physically. I raised my eyebrows a bit at that. Are you trying to ask me about our sex life? Michael looked at me. Honestly, I'm just jealous he knows what sex with you is like. I blushed despite myself and my heartbeat quickened. Why would you be jealous of that? I'm sure you've been with plenty of women. Yes, I've been with women, but none as beautiful as you inside and out. We stared at each other intently, our fingertips brushing against each other. He moved closer to me and lifted my chin up. I stared up at him, and he brushed a strand of hair out of my face with a smile. Then he leaned down to kiss me. Chapter 24. Standing in his bedroom, after my confession to him about Todd being my ex, Michael kissed me. He was gentle at first. Then, before we knew it, we were locked together, his tongue gently teasing me to open my mouth until my lips parted, and he pushed between my lips with an urgency that had my skin tingling and my core lighting on fire. His fingers set the skin of cheek ablaze. My heart drummed in my chest at the anticipation in the air at our closeness. We were so close that I could almost feel the sharp edges of his stubble that had dusted his face as the day grew to a close. Releasing my lips, he whispered, I can't imagine not knowing you, Shelby. His breath was warm against my lips. The small vibrations sent waves of energy through my entire body. Goosebumps prickled my arms. The sweet smell of cinnamon on his breath, and his sandalwood cologne, mingled perfectly together. The sensation was too much for me to bear, so I closed my eyes, letting Michael take over, as I tried desperately to etch every second of the moment into my memory. I can't imagine not knowing you either, Michael, I said breathlessly, my eyelashes fluttering with anticipation. He pressed his lips softly to mine, the heat of our lips combining. The warmth spread through my entire body, even to my bare feet against the cold tile floor. As softly as it started, I wanted to feel the pressure of his strong arms around me, crushing me against his muscled torso. I leaned into Michael's chest, his muscles so tight they were unmoving. He responded to me by sliding his hand up my back and pressing me to him. His lips matched the sudden intensity, and I parted mine, and he pulled my bottom lip between his. I held back a moan as he softly bit my bottom lip, but I could not help my hands making their way into Michael's hair. As my fingers slipped through the softness of his perfectly styled locks, the scent of sandalwood intensified. Before I could register the change, Michael's hand, which had started out on the side of my face, was cradling under my butt, and Michael pulled me up off of the floor and even closer to him. I instinctively wrapped my legs around his waist. I felt the thumping of his chest as my body rested against his, and we deepened our kiss. I could feel the hardness of him between my legs and pulled myself closer, unable to keep my body from satisfying my craving for him. Time felt as though it stood still as Michael held me to him, my hands lost in his hair. Just as quickly as it had all started, the moment shattered. His cell phone beeping was deafening against the silence of the room and broke us out of our entangled trance. My feet hit the floor, the cold tile shocking me back to reality. We both stood there for a moment, breathing hard, our hearts racing as we tried to come back to reality. Shelby, I am so sorry. I lost control of myself for a second, Michael said. I wished he'd lose control more often. I touched my hand to my mouth, where his lips had just been. I ached at the absence of him. He ran his hands through his already mussed hair and took a few steps back from me. That's okay, I said, trying desperately to catch my breath. It took all I had not to run back into his arms. Didn't he sense that the feeling was mutual? I wanted him just as badly as he wanted me. Maybe more so. Let me turn this off so we can talk. Michael's face fell as he took his phone from his pocket and read the text message on the screen. Is everything okay? I asked, watching the worry lines reappear between Michael's eyebrows. I am so sorry. I have to deal with this, he said, swiping his finger across the screen. I will leave you to it, I said, walking toward the door. I needed to be alone to understand what had just happened between us anyway. What had I just done with my friend's dad? We will talk about this, about us, I promise, Michael said, looking longingly into my eyes before turning back to his phone. Bruce, what did you find out? Michael said into the phone. That was my cue to leave. I silently picked up my shoes next to the door and slipped out into the hallway. I closed the door softly, silently clicking the latch into place. I leaned against Michael's door, listening to his muffled voice as he talked on the phone. Even through the door, I could tell that whatever the news was, it wasn't good. Laughter sounded at the opposite end of the hall. Knowing what it would look like to come out of Michael's room, shoes in hand, I retreated away from his room and the approaching voices. The last thing I needed was for Lauren to think I had slept with her father. My feet pattered against the marble flooring in the hallway. I considered going back to my room, but I knew I would not be able to sleep after the kisses I'd just shared with Michael. I felt like I needed to make an appearance back at the party before Lauren noticed my absence at the same time that her father was gone. However, I couldn't seem to catch my breath, so I walked as slowly as possible back to the kitchen. I stood for a long time, watching people laughing, dancing, and raising their drinks in silent speeches I couldn't hear. My mind was still too caught up in what had happened with Michael. Eventually, I opened one of the kitchen doors to the back patio, and the engagement party was still in full swing. Clearly, no one had noticed Michael and me heading into the house together. I was thankful for that, at least. I should have known I wouldn't be missed by this crowd. I spotted Todd with Lauren and made sure I was out of their eyesight quickly. I grabbed a glass of champagne and leaned against the wall by the pool looking out at the ocean. It felt like I could still feel the tingle of Michael's lips against mine. I felt good, despite the toxic situation with Todd. Michael was clearly as attracted to me as I was to him. I replayed our kiss over and over in my mind. I still couldn't believe it had happened. Finally. But then, what did this all mean? I still had so many questions. I finished my drink and sat the empty glass on a table, turning to walk toward the kitchen when I heard someone yell. Cannonball. A man with long brown hair splashed into the infinity pool, soaking me in the process. I watched the ripples disturb the surface of the pool and water spill out the edges. I left quickly, before the man re-emerged and retreated back inside as a wave of laughter hit my back. Is this whole trip taking every opportunity to slap me in the face? I mumbled to myself, taking off my heels again as I headed for the stairs. I took the steps 2 at a time back to my room. If someone had wanted to follow me, it would have been obvious where I was headed. I left a dripping trail of water all the way there. I couldn't help but remember walking into Amore Belle in a similar state when Michael had bought me the dress in the first place. I hung my cocktail dress to dry in the shower, hoping that it wasn't ruined. Maybe I would send it to the dry cleaners when I returned to New York. I had no idea how to care for a dress so nice. I knew if I tried to clean it myself, I was sure to ruin it. The smell of chlorine that clung to my skin nudged me toward the pedestal bathtub at the far end of the bathroom. I turned on the tap and let the steam from the hot water fill the room. I grabbed a glass of water and turned on some music. Slipping inside the warm embrace of the water, I was instantly taken back to the heat of Michael's body pressed to mine. My lips pressed delicately against his. The feel of my body wound tightly around his. The way he smelled, he was intoxicating. I couldn't believe I'd just kissed Michael. I had thought about it a few dozen times, always talking myself out of it because he was my friend's father, but no amount of imagination could compare to those few blissful minutes. He was so much more than I'd imagined. A text flashed on my phone, which I'd set on a towel next to the tub. I dried my hands and picked up my phone to find a text from Lynn waiting for me. Lynn, there was a last-minute cancellation on a flight out tomorrow. Do you want us to change your booking for you? I can still meet you at the airport to pick you up. Let us know ASAP. This afternoon I would have texted Lynn back instantly, begging for her to get me on the soonest flight out of here. However, that was before my shared moment with Michael. Even with Todd being here and constantly trying to get me to sleep with him, I didn't know if I wanted to leave. What would he think if I jetted off the day after we kissed? I asked the ceiling of the bathroom. I sank lower, covering half of my face in the warm water. The water had completely cooled when I'd finally made up my mind. I drained it out of the tub, and with pruny fingers, typed out a response to Lynn. Shelby, I need one more day. Something big happened. I will explain everything when I get back. See you in 2 days. I couldn't leave yet. I'd just let Michael know how much he'd come to mean to me. How could I leave now? I'd wanted this for longer than I let myself admit. I'd wanted this since the first time I saw him. I had to see Michael one more time before I left. If I left now, I'd never know what might happen between us. I wasn't willing to risk that, not to escape Todd or Lauren's wealthy friends. I had to talk to Michael. I had to know what this was. Chapter 25. Michael.
Bruce, what did you find out? I asked the head of my security team. We have reason to believe that Blaine knows your current location in the Bahamas, sir, Bruce's voice echoed on the other end of the phone. I looked up when the door clicked. Shelby had left during my eagerness to call Bruce. I felt like a complete ass. I kissed her and then made a phone call seconds after. Sir, Bruce's voice pulled me out of my own thoughts. I'm sorry, Bruce, what did you say? We are worried about your security measures in the Bahamas. You have no one with you from the team. Please tell me you have been activating the security system we had installed. I'd completely forgotten about the security system in the rush of preparing for Lauren's engagement party. I'd have to remember to set that after we got off the phone. How do you know that Blaine knows where we are? I asked. Seconds later, my phone buzzed against my ear. I put Bruce on speaker so that I could read the incoming messages. He'd sent me multiple screenshots of Lauren's social media pages. There were at least 10 posts in the last 3 days, all pictures of her on the beach or lounging out on the yacht. In the last message was a picture of the Bahama beach house with the caption, "Engagement party at Daddy's." Shit, I muttered under my breath. She has been documenting her every move, and in turn, documenting yours as well. I should have known she would be posting. She never stops. It would be wise, sir, to advise your daughter to stop posting, at least for the time being. That, unfortunately, will not happen. Lauren has made social media her career. She will never agree to stop posting. Even if it is putting you and your entire family at risk. She doesn't know about Blaine, and it is going to stay that way, I said bluntly. Of course, sir, what do you suggest I do? I asked. Is it possible to head to a new destination? We may have caught this early enough that you can leave before Blaine finds a way to get to the Bahamas. I will see what I can do. I likely won't be able to make that kind of arrangement, though. I have a house full of guests at the moment. I understand, sir. Should I send a few members of my team to you? I really don't think that is necessary, I said, hating the idea of having any of my bodyguards follow me everywhere while I was on vacation. I got enough of that at home. I also selfishly knew Shelby and I likely wouldn't get another moment alone if I agreed. I wish you'd let us send someone out just to watch the perimeter at least, Bruce said with a sigh. I'm just a call away if you change your mind. I'll have some of my men on standby. Thank you, Bruce. I will let you know. I hung up the phone and resumed pacing my bedroom. It felt excruciatingly empty after Shelby left. I started to make my way towards the door to go and find her when my phone rang again. Alistair, I said, answering the call. Good evening, sir. I am so sorry to bother you during your daughter's engagement party, Alistair said. Alistair, you know I am never too busy to talk to you, I said with a laugh. No one knew better than Alistair just how much of a lie that was. I was always too busy. I just got off the phone with the security team. Have you talked with Bruce yet? Yes, I actually just got off the phone with him. Oh, good, then you probably know more than I do. I just wanted to call and assure you that your accounts have all been secured. I also went over your father's will again with a fine-tooth comb, and it is just as I expected, airtight. Thank you, Alistair. That brings me a lot of peace of mind. Just be careful, Michael. It sounds like Blaine will stop at nothing to bring down the Astors. Honestly, it would be a waste for him to come here. I have nothing on me of any value to him. He would be smarter to wait until I am back in New York. If he does show up here, there is nothing he can take from me. Just be careful, sir. If Blaine realizes that he won't be able to get money, he will likely go after something else. What could he possibly go after, other than my money? I asked, curious as to what Alistair was referring to. Your reputation, Alistair said with obvious anxiety in his voice. You make a good point, Alistair. This is exactly why I depend on you so much. I will be on high alert. Take care, Michael. I hung up the phone and tossed it onto my bed, not wanting to deal with anything more for the rest of the night. The soft thump of the phone on the mattress broke the silence of the very empty room. The realization that Shelby had left, and that I had let her, hit me in the stomach. I placed my palms over my eyes, and the first thing that came to mind was Shelby and our kiss. The memory of her eyelids as they delicately fluttered shut right before my lips met hers. I could almost feel the heat of her body pressed up against mine and the perfect curve of her ass as I pulled her up to me. I needed to find her. She told me her truth about Todd, and now it was my turn to tell her my truth. I needed to explain that it was my bastard brother who ruined our moment. Her touch must have addled my brain. It was the only logical explanation I could find as to why I would let her walk out of my room. How could I have let her walk away, especially after a kiss like that? I was desperate to find her and made my way out of my room and down the hallway, even knowing my hair was in a state of disarray. I could not waste time fixing it. I also did not want to mess with Shelby's handiwork. I made my way back to the party, hoping that Shelby had come back there. I scanned the sea of drunken people, searching for her. A flash of red got my hopes up, but they quickly fell as the woman turned around. The red-haired woman did not hold a candle to Shelby. Daddy, Lauren squealed, catching sight of me. Lauren, sweetheart, are you having a nice time? I said as I tried to seem as interested as I could. Even though I was desperate to cut the conversation short and find Shelby. I knew the longer I let our moment pass, the harder it would be to get it back. It is absolutely amazing, Daddy. Have you tried the Lauren lemon drop? She asked, But she shoved a drink into my hand, not waiting for my response. The next thing I knew, she was hitting the side of my glass with a fork, getting the crowd's attention. My daddy, who was sweet enough to throw this amazing party for me and my fiancée, would like to give a speech in our honor, Lauren said, her voice raised to the entire crowd. Nothing quite like being put on the spot. However, I knew that if Lauren wanted it, she would stop at nothing to get it. I couldn't help but wonder if my daughter had purposely set her sights on Todd, knowing he was not single. Sadly, I knew better than to think she wasn't capable of such a thing. Thank you, Lauren, for that wonderful introduction. I would like to welcome you all to my home and thank you for taking the time to celebrate my beautiful daughter and her future husband, I said, holding my glass up to the couple, and the crowd followed, raising the drinks too. I couldn't think of anything complimentary to say about Todd, so I decided to focus on the good aspects of my daughter's character. However, that proved to be more difficult than I had originally thought. Lauren has always known how to get exactly what she wants. Shit, that sounded harsh. So I know that because she has put her heart into having a happy marriage, that is exactly what will happen for her. I wish all the best to my one and only daughter. The crowd clapped at the wrap-up of my speech, and I hoped I had pulled it off without upsetting Lauren. Thank you, Daddy, Lauren said, pecking a small kiss on my cheek. I guess I hadn't blundered too badly. Where is Todd? I asked Lauren, surprised to see that he was not by her side. Oh, I'm not sure. I've been having so much fun, I lost track of him, Lauren said with a shrug, not seeming worried. Well, let me know if you need anything, sweetheart, but I think I am going to turn in for the night. I'm not young enough to keep up with you and your friends. One more thing before you go. We need to discuss the budget for my wedding. I need to contact this wedding dress designer if I am going to get one of the dresses in time, but it is a $50,000 deposit to hold my spot. Not wanting to get into a conversation about wedding budgets when I desperately needed to find Shelby, I told Lauren, whatever you need, honey. Lauren squealed her usual high-pitched, bird-scaring squeak, thank you. Thank you, thank you. We can discuss the details later, I said and walked back inside. I looked around and was relieved that the house seemed to be empty, so I made my way up to the second floor and Shelby's door. I knocked quietly, but there was no response. Damn it, I said, fearing she was ignoring me on purpose. I pressed my ear to the door and heard running water, and I guessed that she was taking a bath. I wished I could be in there with her, feeling her naked body against mine. I sighed and pulled out a piece of gum, popping it in my mouth and pulling a pen out of the inside pocket of my jacket. On the small bit of hope that she wasn't ignoring me but simply couldn't hear me, I wrote a note on the gum wrapper and slipped it under her door. I can't stop thinking about you or that kiss. I will find you tomorrow, so we can talk. M. Chapter 26. Shelby.
I woke up on top of the king-sized bed in my cotton robe. Apparently, I fell asleep right after getting out of the tub the night before. I didn't even make it under the covers. My stomach growled, so I got up and put myself together. After putting on light makeup, I picked out a strappy sundress from my new vacation wardrobe and headed for the door. My bare feet made contact with a slip of paper someone had slid under my door sometime during the night. I can't stop thinking about you or that kiss. I will find you tomorrow, so we can talk. M. Even without recognizing the neat handwriting from his previous note, I knew it was from Michael. I couldn't help but smile at the thought of me being on his mind. I carefully placed the note with the other in the small pink seashell before making my way down to the kitchen. The house was completely silent. Everyone was probably still in bed, nursing a hangover. I was glad that I would get to spend the morning by myself. It would give me plenty of time to wrap my head around my own feelings. I quietly found my way around the kitchen and made myself an omelet. It felt nice to fend for myself for a meal rather than having it brought to me on a silver platter. While some aspects of this life were extremely appealing, there was something fulfilling about making your own meal. I plated the omelet and found a quiet place on the patio to watch the waves as I enjoyed my breakfast in silence. As I took the last bite, I heard a clatter of moving dishes behind me, which let me know others were up, so I left my plate and walked towards the private beach. I'd already explored my way down toward the gazebo, so I decided to venture in the opposite direction instead. The chirps of birds were my only company on my walk down the beach, and slowly the sand led me to a secluded cove surrounded by pine trees and rocky ledges. The water was still and so clear I could see the schools of brightly colored fish swimming beneath the surface. I waded into the water to my ankles, but on a whim, I took a quick look around to make sure I was alone before slipping the dress from my shoulders and throwing it onto the dry sand, followed by my lace bra and panties. I slipped slowly under the water's surface, and the fish scattered around me. I swam lazily through the water, daydreaming about Michael. I couldn't wait to talk to him later, and hopefully to kiss him again. "You're braver than you look." I jumped and moved to cover myself before realizing who it was. Michael stood on the beach watching me tread water, clearly enjoying the view. "What are you doing here?" "I thought I was alone," I said, trying my best to hide myself under the water. "I saw footsteps in the sand on the beach. I assumed you would be the only one up already. So I took a chance and followed them. I didn't expect to find you like this, though," Michael said with a small laugh and a mischievous grin. He turned around to give me privacy, likely thinking I would get out of the water and get dressed. Instead, I swam up to where he stood on the edge of the water and splashed him. He leapt forward and turned around again, a smile finding his lips. "Are you going to be brave?" I taunted, not knowing what had gotten into me that day. I swam backward, daring him to come after me. Michael slowly unbuttoned his shirt and slipped off his perfectly fitting shorts until he was standing there with nothing on but the wind at his back. I couldn't help but stare at him standing naked on the shore. He followed me into the water, although less gracefully. "What did you want to talk about?" I asked as Michael stopped a few feet from me, treading water. It was hard to keep my eyes on his face and not let them wander down to his manhood. "I wanted to apologize for the way I ruined last night," Michael said. "What do you mean ruined?" "I was just hoping everything was alright. I saw the worry on your face. Something big must have happened." "Wow, I did not expect you to react that way. What do you mean you could see the worry on my face? Am I that transparent?" "No, I don't think you are transparent. I just noticed the crease you get between your eyebrows when you are worried. You got the same one when you were asking me about my past with." I trailed off, not wanting to bring up my ex at this moment. Michael took the cue and did not push the matter any further and gracefully changed the subject. "I am glad I didn't ruin everything," Michael said softly looking at me. He looked at me with unadulterated desire. "Why is that?" I asked. "Because if I did, I wouldn't be able to kiss you again." Michael smiled and inched closer to me in the water. I couldn't help but notice his eyes roaming up and down my body. "Should we, though? Do you have a reason we shouldn't?" Michael asked, the crease between his eyebrows appearing again. He stopped just short of touching me, but I felt like I could still feel him. The current between us was electric. "What about Lauren?" I said, trying to keep control of myself. Just being this close to him, naked, made me feel breathless and excited. "Shelby, you only need to worry about what you want. It shouldn't matter to Lauren what happens between us, and if it does, I will handle it." I took a deep breath and looked at Michael's questioning eyes. I knew he was right. I always worried more about other people's happiness than my own. At some point, I was going to have to choose me. Aubrey and Lynn had sent so many text messages telling me to go for it with Michael. They obviously didn't think it was a problem to date Lauren's dad. So why should I? "I want you to kiss me again," I said shyly. "I want more. I want you." Michael closed the distance between us and pulled me into him. Our naked bodies connected under the water, and the smoothness of our skin together electrified the water around us. The softness from the kiss the night before had all but faded into the passionate urgency of our kisses in the water. I wrapped my legs around his waist again, loving the way our bare bodies felt against each other. Michael moved from kissing my mouth to kissing down my neck. I could feel his desire, hard against my leg, and couldn't deny I wanted him just as badly. "Are you sure you want this, Shelby?" Michael panted between kisses on my neck, moving back up toward my mouth. "Yes, Michael, don't stop," I moaned in a breathless whisper. "Do you still want more?" His voice caught in his throat, and I could hear the longing in each word. Yes, I whispered into Michael's ear before biting it gently. Just as I started to feel him slipping inside me, a tree branch cracked, snapping my attention to a man holding a camera pointed directly at us. I grabbed onto Michael and said urgently, "Michael, there is a man taking pictures of us." Michael turned his head, clearly seeing the man with the camera. "Shit, stay behind me, Shelby. I'll get you out of this." Michael used his body to cover mine, and I buried my face into his neck, praying the man hadn't already gotten a picture of my face. Michael swam for a group of rocks, hiding us behind them. "You stay right here, and I will go handle this," Michael said. I latched onto one of the rocks, and Michael used a butterfly stroke to reach the beach. Sliding on his shorts, he took off in the cameraman's direction. They both disappeared from my view in the dense vegetation and palm trees. Hot tears streamed down my face, mixing with the salt water. I swam over to the beach and slipped my dress back on before the cameraman could return. The fabric clung to my still wet body, a feeling I absolutely hated. However, the feeling of safety the dress brought me was worth being uncomfortable. How could I have forgotten that Michael is not only my friend's dad, but he is also, in his own right, a famous businessman. It was easy to forget that the man was worth billions because he was so kind and generous, especially toward me. As my heart slowed, my stomach rolled with dread. That man was likely with a magazine that would publish those pictures for the entire world to see. Pictures of me about to have sex with Lauren's dad. Billionaire Michael Astor spotted skinny dipping with mystery woman. I could already imagine the headlines and articles that would follow the scandalous pictures. There would be no way to face Lauren after she saw pictures of me naked and kissing her father. If my identity got out, I could possibly lose my spot at Harvard, and I could kiss the job at the law firm goodbye too. I finished getting dressed and then walked back to the mansion on my own, knowing I could not face Michael after the trouble I had just caused. I would lock myself in my room until I could sneak away to my flight tomorrow. I kept looking over my shoulder and scanning the surrounding areas for people as I walked back. Once in my room, I leaned my back against the door. Michael and I had almost had sex. I smiled to myself, no longer trying to deny how good he made me feel. The thought of facing him after this scared me, but I desperately wanted to finish what we'd started. I slid my dress off and got in the shower to wash off the sand and then snuggled into the robe Michael gave me, drinking in his scent. I just wished things could have ended differently between Michael and me. If that was the only time I was ever going to be in his arms, I didn't want it to be tainted by the intruder with the camera. I wanted to remember the two of us together, wrapped in each other's arms, focusing on how amazing we made each other feel. Hot tears slid down my cheeks. I'd known this was a bad idea, that I shouldn't get involved with my friend's dad, even if Lauren wasn't the nicest person, even if she was unknowingly marrying my ex. Going home couldn't erase what I'd already done, but it could prevent anything worse from happening. I would miss Michael, but leaving was for the best. I knew that now. For certain. Chapter 27. Shelby. My eyes burned from all of the crying I had done the night before. I'd spent the whole day in my room, and I'd barely slept that night, worrying about how many magazines would have the picture of me and Michael on the cover the next day and thinking about my decision to leave. I just hoped that I would be able to make it home before the media caught hold of the story. I wanted to be as far away from Lauren as possible when she got a hold of the picture. I texted Lynn, telling her to confirm the flight for the next day and wondered how I'd even get there. Flying commercial meant I couldn't use the private airstrip. Maybe Reggie will be able to help me. Brenna, now more than ever, I wanted to escape this vacation. I'd gone to the bathroom and started the shower, filling the room with steam, when I heard an urgent knocking on my door. My heart sank, knowing Michael would never knock so frantically on my door. The only other person it could be was Lauren. She must have already seen the picture. I turned off the shower and wrapped myself in my robe before taking my death march to the door. I swung it open to find Lauren standing there with mascara-stained tears running down each of her cheeks. "Shelby," Lauren sobbed and cupped her mouth with one of her hands. "Lauren, I am." But before I could start apologizing, Lauren wrapped me in a hug and started crying into my shoulder. I stood there stunned and confused. I figured Lauren had come up here to kick me out of her father's house and end our friendship. After a few seconds, I wrapped my arms around her and patted her back. Lauren, what is going on? I asked, still confused but selfishly relieved. I caught Todd with another woman last night. Lauren gasped, her body shaking with sobs. Oh, Lauren, I said in a sympathetic tone. I wanted to call Todd every horrible name I could think up, but I knew that wouldn't help right now. That came later in the breakup, as I was all too familiar with, because of Todd. I pulled back from Lauren, and with my arm around her shoulder, led her to one of the small couches in the room's sitting area. I pulled out my phone and sent a quick text to the maid, Brenna. Shelby. SOS. Lauren is having a breakdown in my room. Could you have someone send up some coffee and tissues? Brenna. On it. I'll be there soon. Hang in there. Who are you texting? I need your undivided attention right now. Lauren said, shooting me a dirty look. I texted one of the maids. I am having her bring up some stuff for you, I said, trying to stay calm at Lauren's outburst at me. It was probably just because she was so upset. Oh, that's fine, I guess. Lauren, tell me what happened, I said. Last night, Todd didn't come back to our room. I was worried about him, so I started looking through the entire house for him. I could not find him anywhere, so I went outside, figuring he might have gone for a walk on the beach to calm down after our fight. What did you two fight about? Well, the first day we got here, I picked up his phone while he was in the shower, and he had a text from an unknown number. The text said, I miss you. Lauren, that could have been from someone in his family, I said. I couldn't believe I was standing up for Todd. I knew exactly the kind of man he was, but seeing Lauren so upset made me want to protect her feelings. That's what I figured until he got out of the shower. He saw me holding his phone and got super defensive about it. Last night, I brought it up again because we never actually got to the bottom of it because he distracted me by biting my. Anyway, I interrupted, not wanting to hear where that story was going to go. Anyway, we fought about it again last night. He told me I was being paranoid, Lauren said with a big sniff. Just in time, a knock sounded on my door, and I rushed to get it. Brenna carried in a tray with a pot of coffee, 2 mugs, some expensive-looking tissues, and a box of chocolates. That Brenna was a smart one. I quietly thanked her, and she nodded, smiling at me as if to say, good luck. I handed Lauren a tissue, and she dabbed at her dripping nose. I'm sorry. Look at me, I am a mess. Don't worry about it, Lauren, we can get you cleaned up after you feel better. I poured a cup of coffee and handed it to Lauren. What did you say when he told you were being paranoid? I asked. I told him I had every right to be paranoid with the way he was acting, but then I took it too far and said I should have known he would cheat again. What? I was about to take a sip of my own coffee, but I held it frozen in midair. Oh, he hasn't cheated on me before, Lauren said, not understanding why her statement shocked me. He had some girlfriend when we met, and it took him a while after we started sleeping together for him to end it finally. Anyway, so I went outside to look for him and found him rolling around in the sand with some girl. You can't be serious, I said, and the edges of my vision turned red. I am serious, I was horrified. She wasn't even that pretty. You could totally tell her boobs were fake. No, Lauren, not that. You knew he had a girlfriend, and you hooked up with him anyway. I am not the bad guy here, that slut on the beach is. Whose friend are you anyway? Lauren said angrily. I thought you were my friend, Lauren. The words were coming out of my mouth before I could stop them. It was me that Todd was cheating on. I yelled, letting the secret finally slip out. Lauren stared at me in disbelief and then started laughing. Todd would never date someone like you, she said, still giggling through her tears. It seemed like she really thought I was telling a joke, but her responding by putting me down was infuriating. What the hell is that supposed to mean, Lauren? We dated for 3 years, so he must have been attracted to me at one point, I said defensively. I know you are trying to cheer me up, Shelves, but I need real advice right now, not just laughs. I am not lying to you, Lauren, I said and pulled out my phone, swiping through countless pictures of Todd and me when we were happy, or at least when I thought we were happy. I showed Lauren a picture of Todd and me at a coffee shop in New York, and Todd was kissing me on the cheek. Oh, my God. I told you, Lauren, we really did date for 3 years. Todd is a cheater. Trust me, I know breakups are hard, but you are going to be so much better off without him. I never said anything about breaking up with him, Lauren said. I was surprised that she was now the one being defensive. Lauren, you just caught him F*ing with another woman, and you are going to stay with him. I am not leaving him for a little slip-up, she responded. My mouth dropped open. I couldn't believe that she considered cheating just a slip-up. I can't believe Todd would stoop so low. Lauren stood and looked out the windows after glancing at me with contempt. Exactly what I was saying. He isn't worth it, I said, relieved that Lauren was coming around. No, I can't believe he stooped so low by dating you. He is completely out of your league. Lauren turned to look at me, anger etched in her features. Ouch, Lauren, I know you are hurting, but I am just trying to help. You don't have to take your anger at Todd out on me, I said. Well, you're not helping. You are a complete embarrassment. I don't need a reminder of my fiancé's poor judgment hanging around. I think it would be best if you left. You've been such a bummer the whole time anyway. Get out of my room, I said in a low voice. It took everything I had not to scream at her. My hands were trembling with anger. Shelby, this is my dad's house. You are the one who needs to leave. She crossed her arms as though she was planning on waiting for me to pack my bags. I stood up and glared daggers at her. Get the FCK out of my room. Fine, but I want you gone. I don't want to see you ever again. Lauren quickly made her way across the room. The feeling is mutual, I shouted, and Lauren slammed the door closed. The tears started flowing again. I'd cried on this trip more than I had in my entire college career, except for maybe when Todd had first cheated on me, and that was really saying something. I was going to need some serious therapy for what was supposed to be a relaxing vacation. I went back to the shower and let the water wash away the tears. I got out and was surprised that Lauren had not sent her mother upstairs to attempt to kick me out. I threw on a pair of jeans and a black t-shirt. Then, I wheeled my suitcase out of the closet, and I threw it onto my bed. With a lack of energy, I shoved everything I had with me into the empty container haphazardly. I took one last look around the beautiful bedroom and out at the amazing view of the ocean. It was a shame that I did not get to enjoy the balcony off of my bedroom. This entire vacation ended up being more trouble than it was worth, except for Michael. I would have done it all over again, just to spend more time with him. I slipped his 2 notes into my back pocket and held the little pink shell in my palm, not wanting to let go. Not wanting to let Michael go. I set the little pink shell back on the nightstand. I hoped he would find it and know what he had meant to me on this trip. Chapter 28. Shelby. The wheels of my suitcase got stuck in the gravel at the end of the driveway. I sighed and pulled harder, having no idea how I was going to get to the airport from here. The suitcase was too heavy. It was crammed full of all of the clothes that Michael bought for me. I realized I had not thought my escape plan through. I didn't want to do the messy goodbyes with anyone in the house, and I figured I would be able to find a taxi eventually, but my first priority was to, however, it seemed I was going to be stuck at the end of the driveway forever. The crunching gravel surprised me, and I turned around, just as a black Cadillac pulled up in front of me. The window rolled down, and I was relieved to see Reggie sitting in the driver's seat. What are you doing, Shelby? Reggie asked me as he took off his sunglasses. He looked so confused at me standing there, suitcase stuck in the rocks. I am trying to get to the airport. I have a flight in a couple of hours, I said, shrugging my shoulders. I didn't want to tell him the truth, but I figured it was better to be upfront with him. Besides, he was one of the few people at the house I knew for certain I could trust. And he obviously had a car. Did you plan on walking all the way there? He asked through the window. Maybe not my best idea, I said and looked back at the mansion. I hoped no one was watching. I had to have the record for the worst escape attempt. I was hoping to catch a cab or something, but I'm guessing this is the best place for that. I looked around and didn't see or hear another vehicle. Reggie got out of the car and came around to me. He grabbed my bag without another word and put it in the trunk. He returned to open the passenger door for me. Well, I am not letting you walk. Get in, I'll drive you. Reggie said with a crestfallen smile. I hesitated, not sure what his expression was meant to convey. Should I just try my luck with a cab after all? Seeing my lack of commitment, Reggie grabbed my hand to help me into the car. Finally accepting the situation, I slid into the passenger seat and felt my body sink into the expensive leather. I was starting to understand how people could get used to this amount of luxury in their daily lives. But I couldn't get used to it. I was leaving. Who knew when I might experience this type of lifestyle again? Not until I earned it for myself as a lawyer, most likely. Reggie closed the door behind me and returned to the driver's side, and started down the narrow, winding driveway. I couldn't help but look back for one last time at the colonial-style mansion. In a few days, I was sure it would feel like a dream that I was ever here at all. Why didn't you just ask for a ride to the airport? Michael would have sent for a car. He probably would have even driven you himself. Reggie's tone was more questioning than it would have been if he didn't have a hint that something was going on between Michael and I. I didn't want to bother anyone. That was the truth, more or less. You couldn't possibly bother anyone, Shelby. We sat in silence as we passed rows of beautiful mansions along the shore. I kept seeing Reggie glance at me out of the corner of his eye. I knew he was wondering why I was leaving so hastily. As we drove further inland, the mansions got smaller and smaller until they turned into charming bungalows. Each bungalow was painted in a pop of color. When you say you didn't want to bother anyone, you really meant you didn't want to say goodbye, didn't you? How did you know? I asked, surprised he had picked up on that. You seem upset, and the fact that you were so ready to leave that you were going to drag your suitcase all the way to the airport. I just put two and two together. You're right, I didn't want to say goodbye. Do you want to talk about it? Reggie asked, looking over at me directly this time as we came to a stop at an intersection. Not really. Lauren and I just got into a fight. She told me she wanted me out of the house. Oh, I thought it might have something to do with you and Michael, Reggie said as the car accelerated again. I didn't know how to respond to Reggie, so I opted to say nothing instead. The truth was, I didn't know how to say goodbye to Michael after all that had happened. How do you thank someone for a beautiful vacation, stolen moments of happiness, and a whirlwind romance while also apologizing for causing a scandal? We rode the rest of the short drive without talking more. I was thankful that Reggie didn't press me for more answers. And I found I couldn't stop daydreaming about Michael. I wanted to kiss him again and finish what we'd started in the water that day. I knew I shouldn't, and that I probably wouldn't get the chance. But that did not stop the longing one bit. We pulled up to the airport, which was tiny. I guessed I should have expected it to be small, considering we were on an island. Reggie got out and got my bag for me. I stood awkwardly on the sidewalk next to the car. Thank you for driving me, and thank you for being a friend to me, I said as Reggie handed me the handle of my bag. I hope you really mean that, Shelby. I would consider myself lucky to be counted as one of your friends. I leaned over and gave Reggie a small hug. I really mean it, Reggie. He grabbed my hand before I pulled away, leaving a business card in my palm. Please reach out if you need anything from me. We will all be back in New York again in a few weeks. I would love to see you when we make it back, he said, with a puppy dog look in his eyes. I nodded and put Reggie's business card in my back pocket, next to Michael's notes. I gave Reggie a small wave and turned away from him as I walked into the airport. Why couldn't I have fallen for someone like Reggie? That would have made the whole trip a lot less complicated. After going through security, I looked at the time on my phone. I had a whole hour to fill before my flight left, and there wasn't much to do in such a tiny airport. I slipped a crumpled bill into the vending machine and selected a lemon-lime soda. It wasn't quite the same as getting a latte from an airport cafe, but it would have to do. I selected a hard plastic chair next to the terminal and pulled out my phone to wait. Shelby. I made it to the airport. It is absolutely tiny. I have about an hour until my flight leaves, and then 3 more on the plane. I can't wait to be back home. Lynn. I will be there to pick you up when you land. Aubrey. We can't wait to see you. Shelby. I owe you both so much for this. I am taking you 2 out for drinks as soon as I sleep off this nightmare of a vacation. Lynn. You could pay me back by packing the rest of my stuff in the apartment. Shelby. Lynn, we are moving in less than 2 weeks. Get on it. Aubrey. I have been telling her that the entire time you've been gone, but she decided that binging rom-coms is a better use of her time. Lynn. I still think my logic is sound. Shelby. Save some of those rom-coms for when I get back. I need something to bawl my eyes out over. Aubrey. What happened with Michael? Did things end badly? Shelby. Beyond badly. I don't want to get into it over text, so I will tell you both all about it when I land. Lynn. I am so sorry, Shelb. I'll make a stop for some ice cream before I come to get you. Aubrey. Does this require more than ice cream? Maybe margaritas? Shelby. I love you too so much. I can't wait to see you. It looks like they are finally going to let me board the plane. I will see you both soon. I handed the flight attendant my ticket, and she directed me to my seat. I got settled in by the window and gazed out at the scene of swaying palm trees and the blue ocean in the distance. Part of me wished I could have stayed and enjoyed a few more days in this gorgeous place. I likely wouldn't have the time or money to come back in a long time. My phone vibrated against the seat. I expected a last-minute text from Lynn or Aubrey, but an unknown number flashed across my screen. Was it Michael? Had he finally found out I left without saying a proper goodbye? I opened the message to find the picture of Michael and me in the cove. My heart stopped beating against my chest. I zoomed in and was slightly relieved that my face was more than half covered by my hair. It would be hard for someone who didn't know me to find my identity with this picture. However, anyone who was with us on the yacht would know exactly whose vibrant colored hair was in the picture. Lauren would know immediately what had happened, well, technically almost happened, between her dad and me. Ma'am, I am going to have to ask you to turn your phone off for the duration of the flight attendant said as she walked down the center aisle. Of course, I responded in a shaky voice. I held the power button and watched the screen go black, taking the picture into blackness. I wished it would disappear altogether, but I knew it would be there as soon as I turned my phone back on. Is this your first time flying? The flight attendant asked. She must have mistaken my shock for a fear of flying. Yes, I offered meekly, not wanting to explain. Well, don't worry, everything will be okay. We will be back on the ground before you know it. Everything will not be okay, I mumbled as she walked away. Get as far away from the mansion as possible. Chapter 29.
Michael. I rolled over in bed. The glare of the sun from the window had streamed across my face, pulling me from some much-needed sleep. I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened with Shelby on the beach. I wanted to talk to her, to see if she was okay, but I hadn't seen her since the incident. My mind went over it, reliving every aspect in vivid color. Michael, there is a man taking pictures of us, Shelby had squealed. I turned my head, and sure enough, a man was standing on the rocky outcrop hanging over the cove. Shit, stay behind me, Shelby. I'll get you out of this, I'd said as I protectively shifted her body behind mine. She'd buried her face in my neck, and I could feel her nervous heartbeat against my chest. I had been so foolish to pull her into this mess. I knew instinctively that this was Blaine's doing. I should have accepted the extra security when Bruce suggested it. I'd swam for a group of rocks as fast as I could. My summer spent in the ocean made me a stronger swimmer than usual, thankfully. I'd reached for the rocks and strategically placed Shelby behind them, out of the cameraman's view. I could see the fear on her face as she grabbed onto one of the smaller rocks. You stay right here, and I will go handle this, I'd said. Shelby had nodded weakly at me, and I'd swam hard for the beach. I'd looked up and saw the photographer frantically packing up his tripod and camera equipment. Had he been waiting for us? How could he have possibly known about this secluded spot? He must have been following me and set up his equipment after watching me strip down on the beach. I grabbed my clothes and made a beeline for the thick vegetation below the man. I'd thrown on my clothes haphazardly before I'd started climbing up the rocks. Once I'd reached the top, the dust was barely settling. He must have run for it when he'd realized I was coming after him. I debated on going back for Shelby, but I figured I was not far behind the photographer. I could do more damage control if I caught up with him. Men are easily persuaded by money, and I'd known with a big enough bribe, I could buy the pictures back. The only problem was I would have had to find the man first. His footprints had been plain to see in the sandy earth, so I'd taken off running after him. Eventually, the sand had faded into a dirt road. I had been scared I'd lost him when I noticed fresh tire tracks in the dirt. He must have taken off fast to leave such obvious divots in the ground. I'd followed the tire track, but when the dirt connected with the main road, I'd lost him. Not ready to give up, I'd spent hours searching the surrounding area and asking the few people I'd run into if they had seen someone speed out of the area. I'd gotten nothing. The guy was a ghost. When I'd returned to the cove, it was illuminated by the stars, and Shelby was long gone. I'd returned to the house well after dark. I hadn't wanted to wake Shelby up, so I'd returned to my own room, where I showered off the mud and the grime. As soon as I hit the bed, I'd fallen into a deep sleep, completely exhausted from the unsuccessful chase. My body still felt sluggish this morning, but I forced myself to get up. I needed to check on Shelby to make sure she was alright. I didn't know how I was going to break it to her that I hadn't been able to track down the man with the camera. I grabbed my phone off of the nightstand, surprised to see that I had slept late into the afternoon. I had several messages and emails that needed my attention. I opened my messages and had an image from an unknown number. I already knew the picture I would see before I opened it. But I opened it anyway. I had to see exactly how bad the situation was. I was relieved that Shelby's face was covered by her hair and that she was hidden behind my body. That would help protect her. I could handle a little public scrutiny, but it could be career-ending for her if the public got a hold of her name. I typed out a quick message, seething with every letter I typed into the phone. Michael, what the fuck do you want? Unknown, 1 million or this picture will be sent to every gossip tabloid. Michael, do you really want to play that game with me? I know it is you, Blaine. You are going down a very dangerous path. Unknown, I need the money, or the picture will be leaked at midnight. I think it is you that is playing a dangerous game, Michael. Michael, leak the picture, Blaine. You are not worth my time. Unknown, are you willing to risk your reputation over a measly $1 million? Michael, I can take a little hit on my reputation. If I give you what you want, you will just come back for more. That is the nature of leeches. Unknown, if I am a leech, what does that make you? You think about no one but yourself, but what about the girl? Can she handle the scandal? What will it do to her life? Michael, even the FBI wouldn't be able to figure out her identity from this picture. Maybe next time, you should splurge on a better photographer. It is amazing to me that you can't even get blackmail right. Unknown, I know exactly who the girl is. My guess is that I know more about her than you do. How else would I know that she left on a plane earlier today? She must be so ready to be back at home. I guess she wanted to be as far away from you as possible before the picture is leaked. Michael, you know nothing. Unknown, play tough all you want, Michael, but those you care about will be the ones to get hurt. Get me the money, or else. I slammed my phone back down on the nightstand. There was no way Blaine knew who Shelby was, but a sinking pit in my stomach made me rush from my room and up the stairs. The walk to her room seemed longer than ever before. I just needed to see her face. When I got to Shelby's room, the door stood open. My stomach dropped, the room was empty. Shelby was nowhere in sight, the bed was made, and the room looked barren despite the perfectly styled decor. I rushed into the bathroom, hoping to find some sign that Shelby hadn't really left, only to find it empty as well. The closet was also empty of all of her clothing, and Shelby's suitcase was gone. She truly had left. I sank onto Shelby's empty bed, my head in my hands, trying to accept the situation and figure out what I had done wrong. I glanced over to the nightstand and realized Shelby had left something, possibly on purpose. The only thing left in the room was a small pink shell set on her bedside table. I picked it up, rubbing the smooth side against my thumb. Where had she picked this up? It must have been significant enough that she felt the need to keep it. I slipped the small shell into my pocket. I should have gone after Shelby instead of the guy taking pictures, but now I couldn't help but wonder if she even wanted me to. Sir. The voice shook me from my thoughts, drawing me back to reality. Reggie was standing in the doorway, a somber expression on his face as he rocked gently from side to side, as if contemplating how to tell me something. Yes, Reggie, is there something I can do for you? My voice sounded exhausted even to my own ear. I hoped that whatever he had to say didn't have anything to do with work. That was the last thing on my mind at the moment. No, I was actually coming to tell you I just got back from dropping Shelby off at the airport. I ran into her when I was driving back from picking up a few things at the store for the chefs this morning. She was dragging her suitcase through the gravel at the end of the drive. My heart crumbled again at hearing the confirmation that she was really gone. She'd left without a word. Thank you for making sure she got to the airport. Did she say why she was leaving? She didn't give me much detail. She looked really upset, though. She mentioned fighting with Lauren. I have no idea what they fought about, but a couple of the maids said they heard Lauren screaming at someone early this morning. No one really thought much of it, they just figured she was yelling at a member of the staff. It certainly wouldn't be unusual for Lauren to scream at a staff member or her friend for that matter. That girl needs a reality check, I said with a loud sigh. I truly was embarrassed to find out that my daughter had yelled at my staff members so frequently that it was considered perfectly normal. I would have to rein her in before she did some real damage. I also needed to find out what she had said to Shelby to make her leave. I suddenly felt exhausted at the thought of having to confront my daughter. Getting blackmailed by my deranged, bastard half-brother was enough for one day. Thank you, Reggie. Will you call my housekeeper at the New York home and let her know to prepare for my arrival, please? Reggie raised his eyebrows slightly but then nodded. Of course, so when should I tell her we will arrive? Tell her we will be there tomorrow. I don't want to stay here any longer than I have to. My mind was made up, which did make me feel slightly better about the situation. Reggie nodded and left me alone with my thoughts. So she really did leave. The fact that Blaine knew she left meant he was having her followed. If I went to see her, I would lead Blaine right to her. My only option was to act as though Shelby didn't matter to me. The only way to keep her safe was to keep my distance. I wouldn't go after her. Not until after I tracked Blaine down. Chapter 30. Shelby.
A knock sounded on my door, but I didn't want to get out of bed. The room that was usually cluttered but tidy, was full of moving boxes, in corners pushed as out of the way as possible. It had always been a tight squeeze with all three of us in one room, but now it just felt claustrophobic. I closed my eyes and wished sleep would come, wished it would give me a break from my thoughts that continued to run back to Michael. I missed him but knew I could never face him after all of the trouble I had caused. I hadn't talked to him after he ran off after the photographer, so I had no idea how much he had to pay the man not to publish those photos. I'd only guessed that he had eventually spent enough money, because I never saw my face plastered all over the front of a gossip tabloid, blog article, or magazine. I had panicked the entire flight home, but I'd decided not to react to the picture the unknown number had sent me. It wasn't like I could do anything about it anyway. I had nothing of value to my name. I wouldn't be nearly as convincing as Michael with his money. Shelby, please come out. You have barely left your room since you got back. We just want to know that you are okay, Aubrey said from the other side of the door. I had decided to keep the incident in the cove from my friends. I did not need them to worry, and honestly, I just couldn't handle having to talk about it. I thought about it enough already. It seemed like it was all I could think about. Shelby, come on. I heard Lynn crack the door open and hit one of the moving boxes that were stacked next to the door. We all shared a room, so I didn't have much privacy. Aubrey was just less pushy than Lynn. I made pancakes, Lynn cooed through the now halfway open door. Fine, I will get up, I said, and I rolled to see my two roommates standing in the doorway looking worriedly at me. Lynn was holding a plate of pancakes, probably hoping to lure me out of bed with the smell alone. It wasn't a bad idea. I could never say no to pancakes, even if I had a broken heart. Aubrey and Lynn smiled as they followed me out of our small shared bedroom and to the even smaller kitchen. I would really miss this place when I moved. I had spent so many years of my life here, I had become an adult here, and I had met two of the best people in my life here. I sat down at the small table, and Lynn gently set the plate of pancakes in front of me, as if any sudden loud noise would be enough to set me off and send me back into hiding. What are your plans for the day? Aubrey asked, always the motherly one of our group. Elementary education really was her true calling in life. She would be staying in the apartment while she finished up her degree and then searched for a teaching position, where she could mold the next generation's minds. I don't know, I offered with a small shrug. Shelby, I know you are hurting, but we are moving to our new place in less than a week now, Lynn said, trying her best to be sympathetic. Lynn and I were both accepted into Harvard Law School, so we found a lovely 2-bedroom apartment just off campus. The rent was going to stretch my already thin budget even thinner, but if my interview at West Law Firm went well, the rent wouldn't be a problem. I had gotten an email confirming my interview, just a few days after I returned. I couldn't help but be reminded of Michael when I saw the message. He'd done so much for me in such a short time. I swallowed and said, "You're right. I need to go and cancel my gym membership. It would really suck to get all the way to Massachusetts and realize I was still paying for a gym membership in New York." "That is a great idea," Aubrey said with a little too much enthusiasm. "You are going to shower, right? How many days has it been now?" Lynn said. I couldn't help but smile in my friend's bluntness. 3. Thanks for keeping track, Lynn. "Anytime," she said with a smile, and I shoveled another bite of pancakes into my mouth. A few pancakes and a quick shower later, I was walking down the crowded street to my gym. The gym had always been an expense that I had found a way to fit into my budget. I often used it as a place to de-stress after a long day of school. In such a small apartment, it was nice to have somewhere to escape to. I walked in the front door to see the familiar receptionist sitting at check-in. "You're not really dressed for the gym today," she said, referring to my jeans. "I am actually here to cancel my membership," I said, stopping and leaning my forearms on the check-in counter. "Oh, no. That is so sad. You've been a regular ever since I started here," the receptionist said as she slipped the cancellation form to me. "I know, I will miss this place. I am moving at the end of the week, and I don't know how I will ever replace this gym," I said while I filled in my information. "Where are you moving to?" "I start at Harvard in the fall," I said and slid the form back to her. "Well, good luck. We will miss you here." "Thanks so much," I said with a small wave as I made my way back onto the busy street. A man wearing a dark hoodie and a baseball cap was leaning against the building. I didn't think anything of it until he started walking a short distance behind me. I figured I was being paranoid, so I slipped into a convenience store, to wait for the man to pass, to ease my nerves. I was filling a cup with a cola-flavored slushie, when I noticed the same man browsing the candy bars, his head tilted just enough that I couldn't get a good look at his face. My heart started racing. He really was following me. I set down my slushie and walked quickly around the shelves and out the front door. As soon as my feet hit the sidewalk, I started running, weaving my way through the other pedestrians on the sidewalk. By the time I made it back to my apartment, my heart was pounding against my ribcage, but I took the stairs 2 at a time, not daring to stop. I threw my key in the lock with a look over my shoulder, but the hallway was empty. I nearly fell into the apartment as the lock clicked, and the door burst open. I slammed it shut behind me, and slumped against the closed door. Lynn and Aubrey's shocked faces met mine, but before they could start asking questions, I threw my finger up to my lips, shushing them. Loud thumping footsteps thudded down the hallway, and I forgot to breathe. Silence followed, but a knock sounded on our door and sent vibrations of fear through my entire body. I nearly screamed, but clapped a hand over my own mouth before the sound could escape. We sat in silence as the minutes ticked by, staring at the door. Occasionally, we'd sneak glances at each other, but we were all so scared we didn't want to take our eyes off the door for long. My breathing started to slow, and I inched toward the door and looked out the spy hole. The hallway was empty. Lynn couldn't contain herself anymore. "Shelby, what the hell was that all about? What is going on?" "I went to cancel my membership like I told you, but as I left I noticed a man following me. I went into a convenience store, and he turned up there too. So, I put the slushie down and left, running as fast as I could home," I said breathlessly. "Was that who just knocked?" Aubrey asked, her face visibly paling. "I don't know," I said, slowly standing up. I turned and looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty as far as I could tell. I gripped the doorknob with shaking hands, still terrified to open the door. I took one last look through the peephole and noticed a small brown box on the edge of our welcome mat. I know that the box hadn't been there earlier, otherwise I would have smashed it on my way in. There is a box at the door, I said. Maybe it was just the postal delivery, and it was just really bad timing, Aubrey offered hopefully. I slowly opened the door and checked up and down the hallway before picking up the box. There was almost no weight to it, so I grabbed it with one hand, still holding on to the door with the other, and pulled it inside. There was no return address or stamps on the package. Just my name in simple writing in the center of the box. What is it? Lynn asked, seeing the worried look on my face and coming to stand next to me. I opened the box and nestled inside was a printed picture of Michael and I naked in the ocean. Holy shit, is that you? Lynn asked. Yes, I said with a small nod. Why didn't you tell us? Aubrey said, who had snuck up to my side while I was distracted by the picture. I thought this would all just go away. At least, I hoped it would. An unknown number sent this picture to my phone, right before I flew home. I figured it would be all over every headline before I even landed. When it wasn't, I figured Michael had bought off the photographer and taken the pictures. Have you talked to him since? Lynn asked. No. I picked up the picture and flipped it over in my hand. Tell Michael he is running out of time.